Hey guys, what's up? Darcy here at 6 Strings 9 Lives. Every so often I get asked the question, who is your favorite band? And the answer, there is only one answer to this. Although I do have a lot of favorite bands, but no one beats out Judas Priest for me. They have been my overall favorite band since 1984. Right around June of 1984 when I got to go see them on the Defenders of the Faith tour. Great White opened up for them. It was really a game changer for me, honestly, and I've followed them ever since, through the ups and downs. And like any other band, they do have ups and downs. But I thought, what I would do today is I'm going to go through each album. I'm going to pick out my overall favorite track from each album, maybe a couple honorable mentions, just in anticipation of a brand new Judas Priest album in 2024, which I fully intend to go see that show. I'm still crossing my fingers that it will be Judas Priest with Saxon, and you know what? Maybe throw Uriah Heep in there too. Not a massive fan of them, but those three bands together make a lot of sense. Last time on the Firepower tour, Uriah Heep opened on the Canadian leg, where I was able to see that show, and it was really, really good. It was a band that made sense to open up for Judas Priest. They're a couple of the older bands for sure. But anyways, in anticipation of a brand new album, which I believe should happen in the first 4 months of 2024, you're going to see a new Judas Priest album. First since 2018's fantastic album, Firepower. Just goes to show you, even 40 years later, they're still making fantastic music. So I thought I'd take each album. There are some albums that are lower on the list, and it was tough to, there is actually one album that was tough to scrape up a favorite song. But for the most part, if you're tuning into a Judas Priest video, these albums, you probably have your favorite song too. Let me know in the comments. Maybe you can just kind of see where my head's at with Judas Priest, but there's some of these albums where, the whole album could be your favorite song. So my entry point, I would say late 82, You've Got Another Thing Coming was all over the radio. Didn't quite sink in until I went to that first show, which I do have a few old photos where I had to go to, back in the day, it was called Wolco. I had to go get these developed, but there is one shot. You have the Metallion on the stage. There's Glenn and KK and Rob. This photo actually has everybody in it. You can see Ian right here and then Dave Holland up here. Just, like I said, really long-lasting impression that was really one of the biggest game changers for me. We went to school, we talked about the show and all the other kids that listened to metal. It was pretty cool. So let's get rolling on, again, just my favorite one single track from each album. So we are going to include all 18 studio albums. Just really, really hyped, waiting for a new album here in 2024. That's been 6 years. So you know what? Could it be their last? I don't know. I thought Firepower might have been their last, but not the case. But here we go. So we're going to start off way back, 1974. 1974, Rock-a-Rolla. There is the original cover. This is a reissue, by the way. But my favorite track on this album is a track called Never Satisfied. And I would say two runner-ups for sure would be One for the Road and the title track, Rock-a-Rolla. Love that one too. Kind of got some bluesy, bluesy bass stuff in here. This is really before Priest really found that Priest style heavy metal sound. But yeah, that's definitely my favorite track, Never Satisfied. On to Sad Wings of Destiny with that iconic album cover. And a lot of people's favorite Judas Priest album. This is a fantastic album. Here's the back cover. My favorite track on this album has always been Victim of Changes. They still play that one to this day. What else? I would say Ripper for sure, and Tyrant. Tyrant would be another one of my, yeah, for sure. Tyrant and Ripper would be kind of runners up, but nothing's going to beat Victim of Changes. You know, Once She Was Beautiful, Once She Was Fine, you know, all that. And then that song ending with those four no, 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 no in those high-pitched Telford screams. Fantastic. So there we go, Victim of Changes. On to their third album and major label debut, CBS Records, Sin After Sin, 1977. No question on this one. I don't even have to think about my favorite track is Starbreaker. Love it. The cover of Diamonds and Rust is a very good track. Two runner-up tracks on here for sure would be Sinner and Dissident Aggressor, which later on was covered by Slayer. And I think even for a lot of people at the time when Slayer put that out on the album, what was that on, South of Heaven? They didn't even know it was a Priest cover song, you know. But their roots go deep, but definitely Starbreaker. And the version of Starbreaker on Unleashed in the East, fantastic. Love that track. Coming up next, and you know, Judas Priest is filled with those dual leads, those trading off solos, you know, KK and Tipton. There was no better guitar duo back in the day, as far as I'm concerned. Next up, from Stained Class, fourth overall studio album, is my favorite track on here is, can you guess it? Beyond the Realms of Death, absolute classic. Show you the back cover anyways. A few of these are reissues, and I have some original pressings here I'm going to show you here shortly. But yeah, Beyond the Realms of Death, just love that track. They actually played on their last tour, you know, the 50 years celebration, kind of listening to that in the background a little bit. But they actually played Saints in Hell, which is a great track. But I would say Exciter would be another one of my favorites. And yeah, Saints in Hell. But nothing beats Beyond the Realms of Death for me off of this album. This is probably, up until this point, this to me is one of the most complete Priest albums. I'm not going to say there's, well, can we say the word filler? There might have been a couple of filler tracks here and there on those three previous albums that I've shown you. But this one is the most complete, top to bottom. Love that album. So we got Beyond the Realms of Death, and then in Canada or North America, this album, when it first came out, my original cassette, which I don't have it here to show you, was called Hellbent for Leather. But this is, the rest of the world knows this as Killing Machine. And my favorite track from this album is actually the North American title, Hellbent for Leather. That one, to me, just has everything that encompassed Priest at the time, the metal, the studs. But this is really a solid album, but for sure, where are we here? Hellbent for Leather. There's a couple of other great tracks on here. Actually, Before the Dawn, that is not really a ballad, but it's a slower, you know, really showcases Rob's vocals. Actually, Ralph Sheepers from Primal Fear, who once tried for the job of Judas Priest, actually did a cover on his album. His Sheepers, just entitled Sheepers, does a great job on that, by the way, too. So, Delivering the Goods, Rock Forever. But yeah, nothing beats Hellbent for Leather for me off of Killing Machine. So there's that one. And feel free in the comments, throw down your favorites, or you think my pick is nuts, jump in. I don't mind. You're not going to hurt my feelings. All right, coming up from British Steel. Really, Priest just gaining momentum. Love this iconic album cover. I got a keychain with this somewhere too, somewhere around here, but love this cover. There's the back cover. Favorite track on here, You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise. So catchy. The riff is so cool. But this is just one of those albums where you literally could close your eyes and land on any song. right from Breaking the Law, Rapid Fire, Metal Gods, Love Grinder. I know it's a super simple riff throughout, but it's, I don't know, it's just so metal. I love it. But yeah, for me, nothing is going to beat You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise. Fantastic song from British Steel. All right, coming up, underrated album. I don't give a shit what anybody says. There are some great tracks on this album, and there's two of my absolute favorite Judas Priest songs on this album, and that is Point of Entry. This is the North American cover that you, the alternate cover, whatever you want to say. There is, I have the other one here too. We'll quickly show that before I talk about the songs. This is the European cover. This is a reissue. The other one is my original copy, or an OG copy. There's the back cover. Point of Entry. I really do love this album. I know it gets its share of shit, but my favorite track on here is called Solar Angels, and a strong runner-up is Desert Plains. Those two tracks would be in my top 20 Judas Priest songs for sure. No questions asked. But another great track that I do like is the album closer, On the Run. Rob just hits those highs. Very good. But yeah, Solar Angels, or you know what? A lot of you will pick Desert Plains, and I totally understand. Totally get it. A song that they still do play live now and then. Coming up next, tough one. I've done a Judas Priest ranking, but it's getting, I think it's 4 or 5 years old now. I will do an updated Judas Priest ranking, a few months after the new album comes out, but this one is high up on my list. Like I said, I discovered that first song, You Got Another Thing Coming, which a lot of people did back in the day. It even got tons of radio play, but and this is one of those albums, I love every track, but I'm going to pick my overall favorite, which is Electric Eye. There's nothing you can do about it. Develop and expose. I feed upon your every thought as my power grows. I love that little part in the song, and of course you got the intro, the Hellion, the build up. But Electric Eye is my favorite track on here. I would say You Got Another Thing Coming up there too. But kind of my dark sleeper hit off this album is Devil's Child. I've always loved that one. Again, one of those simple riffs like Grinder, but I believe you're the devil's child, and I am not a singer in any way, but play it in your head. You'll know that track. But yeah, the Electric Eye, what a great tune. It just shows the speed and those dual leads of Priest, just fantastic. All right, then we get into, so that was an original copy, and here's my original copy of Defenders of the Faith. So my real introduction to this this band, that first big show, fantastic, everlasting impressions on my 15, 16-year-old brain. And the cool part about, and back in the day, you go to a concert in 1984 and there is only, this is only their 9th studio album. So they don't have all this material to pick from, but they played, how many tracks are on here again? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They played 9 out of 10 of these tracks. And if you know the track listing, and it's kind of sad, the only one they did not play live was Eat Me Alive. They played everything else. But my favorite track on here has always been Freewheel Burning. Born to Lead at Breakneck Speeds. Awesome with High Octane. We're spitting flames. Freewheel Burning. And watching that video on Canada's Much Music, Halford's got his leather cap on. He's inside the video game. It's like, I forget the type of, maybe it was called Formula One or something. You literally sit down and like you're driving, you had a gas pedal and everything, and they made that part of the video of Freewheel Burning. Never forget it. But runner-ups on this album would be pretty much anything. and there's certain, a little bit of cheese with some of the lyrics, or love bites, but I love bites. Actually, that is the song they opened up that 1984 concert, and all you heard was that bass, boom, 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 and then When You Feel Safe just goes right into it, and the crowd just went nuts. Never forget it. Chills down my arms, my spine, whatever. But yeah, and the one track they didn't play was Eat Me Alive, which I do love, but there's so many good tracks on here. The Sentinel, Jawbreaker, Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, Night Comes Down. I even love Heavy Duty that goes into We Are Defenders of the Faith. I mean, Raise Your Fist for metal. But yeah, Free Will Burning, number 1 on this one. All right, let's get on to Turbo. This is my original copy of Turbo. And there's another album that gets its fair share of shit, which you're not going to get it from me because I love this album and always have, always will. There's a couple of tracks on here that are skippable here and there. The first video was Turbo Lover. That would be on my list of really good songs on here. But for me, number 1 track on here, nothing is going to beat it. It is the lead track on side 2, Out in the Cold. Slow builder, love the track, love the vocals, everything about that song, Out in the Cold. If you've never heard Priest live, that version on there is top notch. Check it out, Out in the Cold, off of Turbo. On to Ram It Down. So if you know the story about Turbo and twin turbos, and some of these are leftover tracks from that, but the lead-off track, the album title track, Ram It Down, one of the fastest, heaviest tracks Judas Priest have ever done. Love it. That is my favorite track off of this album. If you can look past that programmed drum shit, I wouldn't mind if they ever went back and redid the drum tracks for that and did a remixing of this album. There's so many killer songs on here. Underrated too, but nothing is going to beat Ram It Down. Love the track, heavy metal. But another one of my personal favorites is Blood Red Skies. That kind of reminds me a bit of Out in the Cold, kind of in that line of Priest songs. But yeah, Ram It Down, the title track, heavy, fast, great track. What's coming next? The Painkiller. 1990. Last one with Halford for a while, which you guys know all these stories, but you know what? I'll be honest with you. Nothing is ever going to beat the title track for me on this. That drum intro for Painkiller, right into that song. Rob really pushing his voice in those high ranges are unbelievable. There's a lot of great tracks on here. I would say a couple other favorites would be, A Touch of Evil and Nightcrawler, but Painkiller for me is my favorite track from this album. Next up, we had some changes in the band. 7 years go by until a new Priest album came out with Tim Ripper Owens at the helm, and that is Jugulator. And my favorite track on here has always been Cathedral Spires. Love it. And a couple other favorites would be the title track or Bullet Train or Burn in Hell. But if you've never checked out or you've dismissed the Ripper Owens era of Judas Priest, go check out Cathedral Spires. It is a true Priest classic in my opinion. Definitely check that one out. Now, I said earlier in the video, it was a little bit tough to find a song off of this album, Demolition. Honestly, this is the one real sore spot in their discography. I don't know. Well, obviously, I know whose idea this album was, but, KK and Glenn wrote some of their, worst tunes, in my opinion. It didn't sound great, but if I had to pick one song off this album, and that's all I will pick, is the opening track, Machine Man. It does have a kind of a drum intro that's trying to be like Painkiller into the song, but it is a great track, and no fault of Ripper Owens. He is a great singer. Looking forward to the new KK's Priest album coming out here. I think, would it be September 22nd or 29th, whichever Friday. But anyways, not Ripper's fault on some of these songs and albums, but check out the track Machine Man off of Demolition. So then they go and get Rob back, all's well in the Judas Priest world. And they come back in 2005 with Angel of Retribution. You know what? I wouldn't say an entire return to form, but it was nice to have Rob back. And there is some really solid tracks on here. My favorite being the opening track, Judas Rising. That's like a slow Priest metal builder into a great chorus, great riffs, dueling leads. And a couple other ones, I would say Hell Rider, great track, and Worth Fighting For. Not really a ballad, but a slower song for sure. But yeah, Judas Rising, great track off of Angel of Retribution. All right, then we go into Nostradamus, and I'm actually wearing that shirt. I saw them actually on that tour, which would have been the same set list as the live album, what's it called? A Touch of Evil, you know the one I mean, which actually they did play. That's when I first heard Eat Me Alive live, and great track. But Nostradamus, not universally, there's a lot of people that do love this album, and I don't really, besides Demolition, I don't really dislike anything from Judas Priest. There are some really solid tracks on this album. This is a real investment when you want to listen to. You need to sit down and listen to everything, top to bottom. But yeah, there's some great tracks on here, but my favorite track on this album is called Prophecy. And then I would also highly recommend, actually, Alone. Alone is a great track, kind of a slower track. I would also say the title track, Nostradamus. Two other tracks to check out would be War and then Death. But Prophecy, fantastic track from Nostradamus, 2008. Actually, Testament opened for them on that tour. It was pretty cool. That's the only time I've ever sprung for the meet and greet. I got to meet the band and signed lanyard and all that stuff. So cool. Where does that leave us now? We got 2 more to go. This is Redeemer of Souls from, 2014. First album that Richie appears on. Now, this, believe it or not, is definitely not high on my Judas Priest list. Don't dislike it, but this one kind of has a gear like this throughout the whole album. There's nothing really crappy on here, but the production is very, it's thin in places. You can't hear the guitars fully, and just slipping on the production a little bit. But if you're a fan of this one, no problem, all the power to you. But my favorite track on here is definitely Halls of Valhalla. Great song, and as silly as the March of the Damned is, walking to that rock show, I love that track too. There is definitely, I feel like there's some kind of cliche fillers on here like Metalizer and Battle Cry, but I would definitely go with Halls of Valhalla. The title track Redeemer of Souls is also really good too. 2014's Redeemer of Souls, and that gets us all the way to 2018's Firepower, which was my album of the year that year, and my favorite track on here. It is tough, but I just absolutely love this cover, by the way. I hope they actually, I know the new cover won't disappoint me. I just got a good feeling about it, but it's tough to find a weak track on this album, I'll be honest with you. Or what I would have done, and I've said this I think way back, I would have cut off the last 2 tracks. I would have slimmed this down. Lone Wolf and Sea of Red are, I would have ended this album with No Surrender. I just think it would be fitting, but I get it. They had a couple extra tracks. Could this be our last album? Let's throw them on there. But the No Surrender is actually a great track. But my favorite track on here is called Never the Heroes. But the lead off single was it Lightning Strike? Lightning Strike, Evil Never Dies, Children of the Sun. There's so many little elements of past albums sprinkled throughout this. Production is awesome. Rob Halford sounds fantastic. I highly recommend this album. If you're new to Priest, I guess I'll point you right here, because you could just start here and work your way backwards. But yeah, Never the Heroes, fantastic track from this one. Also, Spectre, great track too. And yes, like I said before, No Surrender. They played that one live, and they had Glenn in the background with a montage of, Glenn is not surrendering to his terrible disease. But definitely looking forward to a brand new Priest album. So I hope you enjoyed that one. Just me babbling on about my absolute favorite band ever. And yeah, let me know in the comments some of your favorite Judas Priest tracks. Some of your favorite albums would be cool. But like I said, hope you enjoyed that. And until next time, stay heavy.